Hopefully the music woke you up. So what we have here is our data from an entire group. The percentage change in mass has been calculated and placed into this spreadsheet. First, ensure that all data is to the same number of decimal places by going to Home and clicking here. Select the cell. While on Home in the top ribbon, go to the Auto Sum. From the drop-down list, choose Average. Then select the values. Then drag the bottom right corner downwards for the other means. It is a similar process to determine the standard deviations. The only thing is they do not appear straight away, so you have to choose others. In my case, standard deviation is at the top because I use it a lot. Then select the data. Press Done. Click back onto your spreadsheet. You can close the box on the right and then again drag down the corner for the other standard deviations. We are plotting concentration against the mean change in mass, so we can hide the other columns. Do not delete, just hide. Select the data we are going to use. Select the type of graph by going to Insert, then over to the right are a number of different types of graphs. I'm going to the recommended graphs and I'm looking for a line graph. As it stands, the graph is not good enough for the International Baccalaureate Diploma Programme. So I'm going to go to the quick layout to find something more refined. This new graph allows us to add a title, which is say what the graph shows, and to label the axes, including any units where appropriate. What we are interested in is a trend line rather than point to point. This will give us a more reliable isotonic point at which our line crosses the x-axis. So we add a trend line. You then need to decide which type of line seems right. With this one, it dips and goes back up, so that's not right, so I'm going back to logarithmic. That looks like the best one to me. We can then delete the original line. We can do this by clicking on the point-to-point data line, and then we go into the format data series. We choose the left-hand option and then click on no line, and it disappears. The legend for Series 7 over on the right serves no purpose, so we can just right click and then press delete, and it is gone. At the moment we cannot see our markers, so we're going to select the data series and click on Format Data Series. Then we go over to the right. We need to choose Marker, not Line, because we've already removed the line. We click on Built-in. We can change the colors of our markers, and we can also change the size. The correlation coefficient tells us how closely the data corresponds or matches to the trend line, with a maximum value of 1. So here we've just selected the trend line, and in the options we've asked to display the correlation coefficient. It's not in a very convenient place, so I'm going to move it to a relatively empty part of our chart. And I can also alter the size of it if I want to make it clearer. You will notice that I've added some minor grid lines to the y-axis, but our problem is the x-axis. This is not a bar chart, it's a line graph, so 0 should start at 0. And we do that by clicking on the x-axis and then clicking on the chart symbol up on the right, and then we click on tick marks. For the diploma program, you're expected to have error bars, so you need to select the data series, go to top left, use the drop down list, and add error bars for plus or minus 1 standard deviation. Clearly these do not look right, so they need to be fixed. So click on the error bars, and then over the options on the right we click on custom. We can specify the values by selecting the cells which contains the values for standard deviation. That way we will have a different value for each concentration. At the moment, the axes are not very visible, so by clicking on the x-axis just here, or we can choose the y-axis, we can go into the Fill tab on the right, make it into a solid line. We can change both the color and also the thickness. We can then do exactly the same thing for the x-axis. I'm going to make it exactly the same thickness as the y-axis, and at the end of it, both axes are very, very visible. The main issue is that we want to use our trend line to determine the isotonic point. So what I have done here is added some additional minor grid lines. I would really like to have had more so I could be much more precise about the concentration of the cells. I have also changed the color of the trend line so it stands out more clearly, and before the error bars were not very clear against the grid lines, so I have both changed the colors of the error bars and I've also made them a little bit thicker. One thing I haven't done here, which I would do as a further improvement, is move the label of the x-axis up to just above the line of the x-axis. If you find the video helpful, please press like and subscribe. Goodbye.